With me now is Reed Dickens. He's a former assistant press secretary for President Bush who is mentioned in McClellan's book. Reed, you worked with Scott McClellan for 3 years in the White House. What was your reaction to the testimony today?
Mine was very similar to the reaction of others that worked with Scott and stood shoulder to shoulder with him through a lot of tough and stressful times. We had a lot of discussions within the West Wing in private anytime any of us had concerns, and Scott never participated in those conversations. He sat quietly and was the biggest Kool-Aid drinker of all. And many of us, after he left the White House, encountered him. I spoke with him several months back before the book came out. A lot of this stuff wasn't in the book at the time. He was happy. I spoke to someone just a few hours ago who said they talked to him a few months back and he was happy as he could be. None of this period of disillusionment as he speaks of. So I don't think we have a problem with him changing his views or what views he has, because a lot of people feel the way Scott does about some of these serious issues. What I have a problem with is that while he was in the West Wing, he didn't have these views.
Okay,
and then for 2 years after he left.
That's something that administration folks, both current and former, have said quite often. But one of his claims is that the president has not been forthcoming with the American people. Did you ever see any of that while you were in the White House?
I spent a lot of time with the president for 3 years on the road, in the Oval Office, in the West Wing. And if there's one thing you can say with this president, love him or hate him, is that he is very candid and direct. And so what's disturbing, and the reason why a lot of us are saying the same thing is because it's true. What's disturbing about McClellan's book is I flipped through the book page after page after page and kept looking for some damning conversation or fact that would back up these very serious allegations. And there were none, just a lot of speculation about what he thought was going on and what he thought people were saying. Scott wasn't in any of the meetings in the lead up to the war. He wasn't involved in any of the planning for even the communications effort.
Okay.
He was on the Today Show a while back, and he talked about one day that he filled in for Ari.
Well, he said that he filled in for Ari Fleischer, former press secretary, while he was away on his honeymoon. But do you have any reason to believe that Libby and Karl Rove spun him so that Libby and Rove could appear to not be culpable in the naming of Valerie Plame?
I will be the first to tell you, Heather, that Scott got hung out to dry in the Valerie Plame situation. It was a terrible situation for any communicator to be in. He got put in an extremely unfair position, and I'm sure Karl and Scooter weren't very forthcoming with him. So everyone concedes that that was one legitimate beef he had with the staff. But what he did to the president after he drank so freely from the well for 10 years and made his whole career based on the president and a lot of money in the last 2 years, it's really unfortunate.
Okay, we have a statement from Valerie Plame and from her husband, Joe Wilson. Let's take a look at this. They say Scott McClellan's book and his congressional testimony shed some light on, as we alleged in our lawsuit, the decision by senior government officials to betray the identity of a covert CIA officer, Valerie Plame Wilson. Many questions, however, such as the role of Karl Rove and Vice President Cheney, remain unanswered. Do you think we will ever learn more? Will the White House ever say anything about what really happened?
I don't know. My experience with D.C. has been that eventually everyone learns everything, which is one of the things they teach you when you move to the D.C. What I will say is Scott had a legitimate beef here. He did get put in an unfair situation, but that wasn't at the core of Scott's problem as a press secretary. He did not have a lot of credibility as a press secretary. He didn't ask tough enough questions internally in the West Wing like Ari Fleischer did before him. I think a lot of the most serious allegations in the book, he didn't have any facts or conversations or events or any information to back those up.
All right, Reed Dickens served at the White House with him for 3 years. Appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me on.